We know many of the real-world systems data generate data in the form of multivariate time series, and this time series, many a case, has spatial and temporal dependencies. Learning these spatial temporal dependencies can aid in many machine learning tasks like uh, missing data imputation, change point detection, anomaly detection, etc. So our aim is to present a online algorithm for learning the dependencies between multivariate time series data. And the algorithm we present is quite general and can be applicable for various systems like industrial processes, water distribution network, brain network, etc. But I will motivate it with an example from industrial process.
Yeah, try now.
Yeah. So we are working with a company where they send multivariate time series data online, and our task is to forecast the time series value and predict events in an interpretable way. So this is an oil and gas company where they have an oil and gas plant, which consists of two main parts, wells and separator. In wells, the oil is extracted, and in separator, it is processed into oil, gas, and water. This is a uh, highly dynamic and complex system with many sensors and actuators. And each of these sensors generate time series data, which are possibly dependent on each other. For example, if an event occurs at a well, it will take some time for it to reflect in the separator. And if we are able to identify this relationship in advance, we can forecast the time series value at the separator, or predict an event in the separator. Similarly, the control actions taken by the actuators in the separator 3 can have directed effect on the pressure sensors in separator 2. So our aim is to learn these dependencies in this system. The important things to note about this is it's a very complex system governed by nonlinear differential equations, and many cases linear models fails to address this. And secondly, the dependencies are dynamic in the nature. In this case, it can be due to the change in amount of oil processed, or a change in weather, etc. And another thing to notice, we are getting data in an online fashion at each 5 seconds. So as soon as we get a new data sample, we have to update model to forecast the time series or for some specific task. So we need to develop a model which can adapt online and learn the nonlinearities. So we assume the system can be described using a nonlinear vector autoregressive model where time series value of the sensor n at time t can be expressed as a nonlinear combination of p time lagged values of all other sensors. And our aim is to estimate the function fn dash over p, which describes the influence of n dash and p time lagged value of n dash sensor on n sensor. In order to estimate this function, we assume the function belongs to a reproducing kernel Hilbert space where any nonlinear continuous function can be expressed as an infinite combination of basis functions known as kernels, which measures the similarity between data points. And importantly, this Hilbert space is characterized by an inner product induced by the kernel. Now, we can formulate a non-parametric optimization problem as equation 3 with a data fitting term and a regularizer. Now, if you see the data fitting term, the function has infinitely many parameters, and it's now, in order to reduce the number of parameters or make the problem parametric, we can use the famous representer theorem, which states if the regularizer is non-decreasing, we can the solution of the optimization problem 3 can be expressed with a finite number of parameters as equation 4, where the number of parameters required is equal to number of data samples available. As I already said, we are getting time series data in a streaming way, and as the amount of data increases, this becomes prohibitive. In order to mitigate this problem, we use a random feature approximation, where any function in a high dimensional space can be expressed in a lower dimensional space if the distance between data points in high dimensional space and low dimensional space can be preserved. In our case, the distance is induced by the inner product characterized by the kernels. So if we can approximate the kernel in Hilbert space in a lower dimensional space, we can approximate any function in RKHS in a lower dimensional space. That is what we do using random feature approximation. Using random feature approximation, we can write the required function fnn dash over p as a inner product of a feature vector and a parameter vector. And the feature vector is described as equation 6, which is which consists of sines and cosines of the data point and random sampling from a probability distribution which depends on the kernel. And number of random samples d increases better the approximation of the function fn dash over p. Now we can see the function can be parameterized using the parameter vector alpha n dash over p. Now our goal is to estimate the parameter alpha n dash over p. If you see the figure, in normal case, the tensor time lag tensors P1, the dependency of a first node is expressed in the first row, and second sensor in the second row, etc. In the case of a normal function, it increases with the time, but we restrict it in a fixed dimension. And next, what we do is we separate the problem for each sensor by grouping the dependency vectors of a particular sensor. So we formulate an optimization problem which is separable across the nodes as equation 7, where the loss function consists of a data fitting term which finds the time series value of n sensor as a combination of all the other time series. Now we have separated the optimization problem to each node so that each node has an optimization problem to solve. So this framework allows us to parallelize the optimization task, which increase the scalability and faster performance. Now, the optimization problem formulated in equation 8 is a batch form. In batch form, that means all the data is required to solve the problem. In many cases, in our case, we are dealing with streaming data. So we need to update the model as soon as we get a new data sample. And the batch solution has other limitation, like it is computationally expensive and it fails to track the change in topology or the graph structure. In order to mitigate this problem, we use a running average loss, where the newest loss function will get the most weightage, and an optimization problem is formulated as equation 10, where we have a convex loss function and a non-differentiable regularizer. Even the loss function is strongly convex due to our formulation, which increases the convergence and help us in deriving the theoretical guarantees. Now we have a closed form solution for the optimization problem. Whenever a new data sample comes, we update the parameter with the equation 11, and alpha n dash over p captures the relationship of n dash sensor on n sensor. We also provide convergence guarantees in the form of dynamic regret, which tells us how well the estimated parameter tracks the optimal parameter. It's the cumulative sum of estimated loss function minus optimum loss function. And for an online algorithm to perform well, it should increase only linearly or sublinearly. In our case, we were able to prove that our algorithm will achieve sublinear dynamic regret if the optimal parameters change sublinearly. Now, in the experimental session, we generate data with nonlinear VAR model with edge probability of 0.3. And in order to visualize, we take the norm of the dependency vector. And at every 1,000 timestamps, the topology changes, and we can see our method was able to estimate the topology quite well. In the real data, we use the oil and gas plant data as explained. There are 24 sensors sampled at 5 seconds per second. And we can see the estimated graph. As there are no ground truths available, the only way to justify the connections is to talk with someone with the domain knowledge, or we can say how well our learned graph performs a specific task. In this case, the task is to predicting the time series. So how well a model performs is depends on how less the prediction error is. And the graph which gives the sparsest graph with the lowest prediction error can be considered as the true graph, as shown in the figure. Now, in many now we have discussed the time series data is streaming, and we are processing it online to generate the graph. In many cases, like in process industry, there can be missing data, which can be due to communication failure or some sensor failure. In this case, we need to estimate the topology and reconstruct the missing data together. So what we will have is an observation of the real data, which is the mass version of real data, and we need to reconstruct the graph from it. So if you see at time t, we have observation and prediction from previous time step. Our goal is to estimate, reconstruct the signal and estimate the graph together, which is a non-convex problem. We convexify it so that it is mutually separable and can be solved alternatingly, where we have two problems which can be solved alternatingly. One is signal reconstruction, and second, the topology identification. So each of them can, so first the signal reconstruction part, we have a closed form solution as equation 15, and topology identification, we have a similar structure as the problem I stated earlier. Now, when we come to experiments, we have done two kind of experiments. One in which at each time steps we have 8 out of 24, only 8 sensor values available randomly at each time step. This can be like due to communication constraint, band limit constraint, etc. In this case, we don't have the ground truth, but we compare our algorithm, how well it performs with less amount of data with full data. We can see even with very less data, our algorithm, we were able to recover the graph similar to full data. And this is the reconstructed signal and observed signal. In second case, it is more interesting. In this case, we have data missing for a particular time. Like in this case, from 4000 to 4200 timestamps, which is around 15 minutes of data, is completely missing from the observation. We can see our model were able to reconstruct the missing data quite accurately without any information from the time series, only based on the graph learned. Till now, we have talked about updating the model whenever a new data sample arrives. But what if we can track the evolution of the model and predict how the model behave at next time step and update it when we observe the new data sample? That is what we do in this next work, where we have the at time t the dependency vector of the model, and we predict based on the evolution of the model what will be the model at time t plus 1. At time t plus 1, we will have the data available, new data available, and each of the nodes shares random features with the node. And using this, when the new data is available, we update the model, the predicted model using the new data. In this case, we are also talking about the privacy aspects of our algorithm, where each node don't have to share their original data with any other node, as the problem is not separable. You only have to share the random features with the node. And yeah. So in this case, we have in the experiment section, we have a time varying model. And from experiments, we can see our algorithm performs better to other algorithms and the prediction only algorithm. So we propose a nonlinear topology identification algorithm, which is capable of learning the nonlinearity using kernel methods coupled with the random features. And we propose an online solution which gives with sufficient theoretical guarantees in the form of dynamic regret. The not separable feature of our algorithm give the scalability to the approach. And apart from that, we have two extensions in the form of privacy and missing data. So do check out our papers for further information. And I would like to thank my collaborators and my supervisors, Dr. Joshin, Professor Baltasar, and my long-term collaborator, Professor Elvin.